I believe he is the first person in the UK to die from Astra Zeneca, and according to King's College Hospital, he's the first in the world.
All right, let's do one more cheers. This is real life. Thank you for being here, first of all. You made it happen.
Thank you for having me.
We're in London somewhere. Where are we?
Waterloo.
Waterloo area.
Yeah.
We don't really know each other too well.
No.
The first time I saw you was on the front lines at Parliament on the 19th of July 2021 when like loads of people just were gathering on that square outside Westminster.
Yeah, it was super hot.
And you walked past me, you had the infamous, what was it, like a billboard, little mini of your husband. And you came up to me and you said that you recognised my energy and you appreciated it, so thank you for that. And it's led to this moment. So it's the 16th of September. Like I said, we're in London. I'm with Charlotte Wright. Tomorrow she's doing a speech around Parliament area.
It is at the Royal Exchange.
At the Royal Exchange. And we're going to discuss a little bit why that's happening. We're in a state of kind of national mourning for the Queen right now. Literally, it was only a few days ago. It was on the 8th of September, I believe, and we're only on the 16th. So 8 days since that's happened. And quite a somber, quiet mood in the UK. Quite a difficult and complex time, but that's a whole different conversation and podcast today with Charlotte. So can you explain a little bit why you're here for tomorrow?
So Fiona is one of the rally organisers, and I have spoken at a rally with her before at Trafalgar Square. So she's invited me along to this one. They kind of focus on different things each time they rally. And tomorrow is about crimes against humanity.
Okay, so a big subject straight away. Crimes against humanity. Obviously I want to leave you to have the main substance tomorrow to speak about, but can you touch on kind of just some of the subjects?
Yeah, I think every time I speak I say my story. I think in other speeches that I've done, I've kind of gone into a great deal about how he died and how he passed. But tomorrow I'm just going to kind of recap because the kind of new information that I have to share is that I'm one of the first 13 people to receive the vaccine damage payments from the government, and it is the first time that they have admitted causation officially in any way, in any capacity for me, and it's been over 18 months.
Okay, so some big things there. It's been over 18 months. Vaccine compensation.
It's not compensation. So a lot of people do say, don't accept it. It's not enough because it's only 120,000. If you accept it, you can't litigate. But that's they specifically don't call it compensation, and it leaves them open to litigation. So that is what we're going for in the future.
Do you mind if we take it a step back slightly? Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of people that actually just don't really understand, who you are and what's happened. So, it's your husband that's passed away, and he took the vaccine.
He did.
And now the government by obviously even offering you money, that is massive, right? Yeah. And it's, regardless of what anyone thinks, this is a massive thing that everyone has to focus on, because this is them admitting something is slightly wrong. Otherwise, they would never offer you that money, They'd be like, get out of here.
Who would give £120,000 to someone who didn't die from the vaccine? It's literally admitting that is what caused his death.
What year did he pass? In 2020?
21.
In 21.
But January. So the rollout was mid-December of 2020, and where he was a NHS doctor, he was one of the first people to have it.
Yeah.
And I believe he is the first person in the UK to die from Astra Zeneca, and according to King's College Hospital, he's the first in the world.
Wow. Yeah. So we've not met, and this is actually really deep. The first in the world, potentially, and at least on record.
Yeah. And I must stress it's AstraZeneca, because obviously Pfizer was produced and given out earlier. But UK was one of the first people to give AstraZeneca.
So let me touch on just first of all a little bit just of the human side. Your life's obviously been turned upside down. How's it been since?
I think I was in a state of shock for a long time. I was numb for at least a year. However, as soon as I found out, because I didn't know straight away, where he was one of the first, they had no information in the hospital. I remember being in the hospital and them kind of saying, well, he's had a stroke, but we don't know what's caused it. We will never be able to tell you what happened, really. It might have been an autoimmune disease, but there's millions, so we'll never be able to tell you which one. So for months after that, I believed that he died from a stroke. And it wasn't until the hospital called me to tell me that there were abnormalities with his case. And we were still during lockdown at this point, and so we had a Zoom with a Dr. Ira, and he is the person from King's College Hospital to say that he believes that he was the first person to die from the vaccine. And the depth of information that he went into was just that he is a thrombosis expert, and he's never seen this type of stroke.
Thrombosis?
Yeah,
what's that?
So you can kind of get different types of thrombosis.
Yeah.
So you can get deep vein thrombosis, you can get, but VITT is what's been recognised as a reaction from Astra Zeneca themselves as an adverse reaction from...
Okay, VITT.
So it stands for vaccine-induced thrombosis and thrombocytopenia.
Okay, I've got all of that except the last word.
Yeah,
Wow.
So the thrombocytopenia identifies the fact that his platelets dropped so low very quickly. So it's the two together. So the thrombosis is a stroke, and the thrombocytopenia is the condition that his blood reacted to. So basically his blood was thinning and clotting at the same time. And German scientists have since discovered, after more research, that the vaccine goes into like the nucleus of the cell, and then the cells mutate, and then they attack each other, and that is why his platelets were so low. I mean, and they were incredibly low. They weren't just a little bit low. A normal person has 150,000 platelets on a normal day-to-day. And brain surgery can't happen below 100,000, and his was 10.
10?
10. I mean, I don't know whether they meant 10,000, but they said to me on the phone 10. So it was just the rate in which it dropped was they couldn't try and save him because he would have bled out on the table.
And this was all in this country, right? And how was the process with like you being able to visit him?
Well, I wasn't allowed to enter the ambulance, so he began having his stroke in our living room. And
your children not at home?
They were in bed, thankfully. He actually helped get them into bed.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until he kind of like relaxed and we were watching TV, he fell asleep and he woke up, and he had pins and needles in his left arm. And then his left arm started to move to the left, and he kind of looked at me and he said, "Shah, I'm not doing that." So he was telling me that he was losing control of his arm. So when the paramedics came, they were deciding where to take him. They took him to Prue Hospital, and then I later found out that he was being transferred to King's College because they had a better neurological department. So I wasn't allowed to go with him in the ambulance, and I would have, if it wasn't for COVID.
Could you visit him?
I did the next day. It was kind of like almost they decided there was nothing that they could do, so come and say your goodbyes. They didn't say that to me on the phone, but they said, "We want to invite you in." And when we got there, he was sedated, he was intubated, and he had already gone, really. They told me...
So the last time you was coherent with him was in your living room when you said his arm was going?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was hours later, so he seized when he was at the hospital. And I've recently read through the witness statements of the doctors for the inquest that hasn't gone ahead yet. after 18, 19 months. And they say from all different angles that he was seizing. And one of the things that kept me or gave me comfort was that he didn't really know that he had passed. But reading the witness statements, he was seizing and then coming round and then seizing again. So the fact that he was on his own just breaks my heart.
So it's that breaking of the heart, because obviously you must have mourned and it's very private. But then the warrior that you are now and that I see, when I've seen, and I see your posts, you're very much about, let me be amongst the people and to spread that. What was that? Where did that shift happen from? Kind of, you could have been a victim, right? But you've now, you're really using this to help as many people be aware. So what was that shift?
That shift happened during that Zoom call. I think I was so shocked that something like this could happen. I mean, I will never pretend to be a person that has been awake for 20 years and that I knew all along. I think that everyone in certainly my circle has always kind of felt like the black sheep of the group, and so I do feel like I had that, but I was very naive. But it is because he was a doctor, so he trusted in his profession, he trusted what they were telling him, and he was excited that he was one of the first to have the vaccine. He was excited that it was the British one. So, who am I to trust someone who is so educated or to mistrust them? And I think that when the doctor told me that it wasn't just the fact that it was an uncommon stroke, it was that it was a stroke that he'd never ever seen before. So those words were like, so not only did he die from a stroke, it was a stroke that you've never seen in anywhere. He was calling it a phenomena. So it was his words that.
Well, that's a massive red flag straight away,
shocked
isn't it?
me, yeah.
And this is what I'm seeing from loads of reports, documentaries. People have just never seen anything like this before, and never seen the NHS respond the way they have. So many nurses are being silenced or just feel deeply uncomfortable by what's happening. You must have had so many people contact you, right? Going this has happened to me.
Yeah, a lot, and it's basically one of the reasons that we started our campaign. We knew that there were so many other people that needed help, and I remember how hard it was for us. If I didn't have my in-laws and my other close family, they're the ones that found the vaccine damage payment claim. They're the ones that found all the information. It was very hidden at the time. It was like you had to really search for it. You had to send off for it and get a form sent to you. Now it's a lot more accessible, but many people don't even know about the yellow card system. So it's just helping people.
Could you explain that? What is the yellow card system? I know, but
of course.
Only bits and bobs.
So it's just if you suspect or know that you have had any adverse reaction to a vaccine, and any vaccine, you are kind of obligated to
report it.
Report it, thank you.
And so it's not just for this COVID vaccine, any vaccine. And does that mean it's existed for years?
It has for forever, yeah. For since
the yellow card scheme. Okay.
Yeah, and it's like it's a statistic that is very underreported because people don't know about it. So it's about 10% of people who are actually being adversely affected that are reporting it. Okay. And doctors have a duty as well. So if they suspect,
especially the fact that fundamentally it was like a mass trial.
Charlotte's going to speak and she's going to tell her story. And while they're offering compensation for this poison jab, it will never, ever, ever be enough. It never brings back a life that's been lost. So please, everyone, make some noise for Charlotte Wright.
Yeah, I've always been a strong clapper. I'm like, even it's the way you cast your hands. People don't. You got to create that vacuum. Yeah. But
now everyone's looking.
Yeah, now everyone's looking. So yeah, we're truly just like in the corner of a restaurant. 5 a.m. we're hustling. Okay, so we've had a little break. We're back. The one thing you just said to me now is, you know, you want to make sure you do this for your children to make them proud, because you actually right now you have to be away from them quite a lot. You're away from them right now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I choose to do this but I choose not to have them with me, because I don't think I should bring a 2-year-old to wait in a crowd whilst mummy goes to speak, or to sit in a bar whilst I'm talking. And I'd prefer, you know, them to be with family, which they always are. I've got amazing support, which I'm thankful for. But yeah, the long and short of it is that I'm there for them every day in the week, but when it comes to weekends, I am away a lot. If I'm not doing something for the campaign, then I'm doing something like this.
What is the campaign?
So the campaign it's called VIB UK. So
VIB?
UK, yeah. So it stands for Vaccine Injured and Bereaved UK. And we basically formed because we got in contact through a solicitor called Horsfield. So Sarah Moore put out a paper about the vaccine damage payment scheme and how it wasn't fit for purpose. And that's kind of like how everyone came together. So it was about 9 of us in the beginning, back in kind of like March 21. And now there's 95 of us, and there are 95 of us because she had to kind of like close the books because there was just too many coming in.
So 95 people that have experienced
an adverse reaction or a bereavement.
Okay.
And she just didn't have the capacity to kind of like help everyone, but obviously like helps point them in the right direction as well. But you know, the point is that it was getting more and more people looking for help, looking for somewhere to go, because there wasn't anywhere. There wasn't anything on the government website. There wasn't, you know. So we started a campaign, and it generally helps people to know about the yellow card that I spoke about earlier, and also that there is this vaccine damage payment scheme, how to apply to it, the numbers to call, how to get the form, and really what our stories are personally as well. So like, because there's not just bereavement, there's Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is another adverse reaction that's come about through Astra Zeneca. We are mainly victims of Astra Zeneca as our group, whereas other groups are kind of like any vaccine.
Okay. It must be so much more complex when you even bring in like Pfizer, for instance. That's a whole different legal battle and a whole different set of teams.
Yeah,
so
and there's so many more different adverse reactions with that as well. So
wow.
Yeah.
So they truly are all quite different, all of these.
Well, they're different vaccines.
And was it kind of just like pot luck, or did you have a decision?
He didn't have a decision. He was offered to have the jab because he was just about to start a job at Great Ormond Street Hospital. Yeah. So he was part of the NHS, and then he was also starting this new role. So they were kind of saying, you can have it with us or you can have it with them, but there wasn't a choice between the vaccines. So it was whatever he was going to be given, which was always going to be AstraZeneca because it was so early in the rollout. So I don't think that Pfizer was even being offered at that time. And
Pfizer's American, right?
Yes, it is.
And so out of the season, about 95, yeah?
Yes. And 95 in our group.
In your
but
group.
There's
of course, yeah. Hundreds, maybe millions,
yeah.
No? But 95 in your group. And am I right in saying 13 of you are currently actively going through the process?
So there have been 13 people that have been approved the vaccine damage payment, but not all 13 of us are in our group. However, there are a few. There's about half of
that must be such a long process to be approved.
Yes.
For them to say, okay, we effed up.
Yeah.
Jesus,
well, they didn't even start until, this scheme is supposed to have been around until the 1970s. It covers all types of vaccinations. It was actually created, according to my vaccine injury lawyer, for the whooping cough vaccine. And then because the pandemic happened so quickly, COVID was pushed on the end of it. So the fact that it was created in the 1970s means that it doesn't incorporate inflation. It doesn't, and
it's not up to date.
It's not up to date at all. Exactly that, and it also has very kind of like random criteria. So you have to be 60% disabled, and you have, and it's just one-off payment. It's not a sliding scale. It's not, and like I always say, I know my situation is tragic, but there are other people who have, you know, one lady in our group, she had the same thing happen to her husband, but her husband came home. But her husband came home with brain damage, and she has 2 young boys, and she has to look after her husband as well.
So now there's
she
expenses,
has medical bills, and so you know her sliding scale should be up here.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's kind of just like a generic blanket for everyone.
And it's just, that doesn't work because it's not, everyone's situation is completely different and very unique. So our campaign is to try and lobby the government into kind of like realizing that the pandemic was such a unique and one-off situation that the people who are adversely affected deserve a one-off and unique payment scheme, you know, a bespoke scheme, because no one's saying that we didn't understand that it was something they had to decide quickly, but they've had nearly 2 years now to do something about it, and they're just sticking with some old legislation that is not fit for purpose.
Mm-hmm. And this campaign, is it being taken serious? Is the government listening? Are you going to? Are they inviting you anywhere?
I'd like to think so, because we have had a public inquiry into COVID-19 open. So, and I'm not claiming that was directly off of our campaign, but it happened at the time that we formed. A Baroness Hartlett, I think her name is. She opened a public inquiry into the whole of COVID. So it's how everything was dealt with from start to finish. Mm-hmm. That was due to be heard today, which is why I'm in London. And alongside that, Sir Christopher Chope has been the only MP to kind of pioneer for our side. He is bringing forward.
What's his name? Sir Christopher
Chope.
Chope,
okay. Yeah. So he has
a bit of hope
been,
there then maybe for us.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean he did bring us a lot of hope as a group, definitely. Like and then he invited us to today. We were supposed to be there today, to sit in the gallery.
And that's just cancelled because of the Queen, right?
It is, yeah. So it will be rescheduled. So we will do it. But there was nothing happening Parliament-wise.
And what's the gallery? Sorry, just because I don't know what that is.
Just to kind of like sit in the audience of the House of Commons.
Is that where they kind of just like shout at each other and there's the man?
Yeah.
So you would have been in there.
I think so.
I mean, that's pretty serious.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
Yeah. So we were going to have to go through security and things like that. I don't know if I was in the same room, because I think you have to be an MP to be in the actual room, but in the gallery to like kind of watch it. And it was just to kind of give our faces, because he was going to be reading the second bill. So it's the second time he was reading the vaccine damage bill, which is asking the government to look at it and to change it because it's not fit for purpose.
Wow.
Yeah. So we do feel like we're getting somewhere slowly. They lied. People died. A strong but true statement to make, and a very personal one for me. My husband, Dr. Stephen Wright, was the first person in the UK, and according to King's College Hospital, the first in the world to be killed by the Astra Zeneca jab. The jab stole the love of my life and left our 2 young sons without a daddy. Stephen was injected with the first jab in Jan 2021. He died 10 days later from vaccine-induced thrombosis and thrombocytopenia. He was only 32 years old. Since then, thousands of victims have submitted claims to the Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme. In August 2022, I was one of the first 13 people to be informed I would receive a payment. This came 16 months after I had submitted my claim. And it was also the first time any governing body admitted causation over his death. This money, of course, will be covered by the taxpayer, not by the people responsible, the big pharma corporations. Due to the shocking lack of support from government and mainstream media following this state-inflicted trauma, myself and an ever-growing number of the bereaved and injured realised we had been abandoned by those who had been placed in a position of responsibility to inform, support and protect us. We had to find answers ourselves. If anything was to be done, we had to do it. Together, we formed the campaign VIB UK, which stands for Vaccine Injured and Bereaved UK. And what a life-affirming and empowering experience that has been and continues to be. I am as grateful for the support and love of those around me as I am disgusted by the lack of support offered by those that are supposed to lead us. After 18 months of working to raise awareness of what was done to Stephen and the many others who have been harmed, I was finally given a platform by mainstream media to tell my story. I must stress, I'm not media trained. I'm just an ordinary person that has had their life torn apart by the deceit of a pharmaceutical company. The interview was a big learning curve for me. I realised how easily a message can be manipulated, both in leading questions and editing. During that recent BBC interview, which has now been removed, interestingly, I said a few things which, in hindsight, I wouldn't have. I was asked whether Stephen, given informed consent, would have still gone ahead with the jab. The question took me by surprise. I answered instinctively yes, he probably would have, knowing that he trusted the NHS and everything they stood for. But really, how would I know what he would have done? How would anyone know except him? It would all depend on the information he was given at the time, and honestly, knowing that they would die 10 days later, would anyone take that decision? All I do know for certain is that he was not given informed consent. He was not given the information. He was not given that choice. His trust in the NHS was betrayed and he died. And just to be clear, I do not think this situation is rare. I know it is not. That is the last time I will be manipulated into saying that. You may have noticed that jabs relating to pregnant women and children have been in the news. After a full 5 months of children between the ages of 5 to 11 being injected, more than 500,000 according to the figures, the advice or offer for them to get jabbed has now been removed in the UK. And for pregnant and breastfeeding women, according to the gov.uk website, quote, it is considered that sufficient reassurance of safe use of the vaccine in pregnant women cannot be provided at the present time. They go on to say women who are breastfeeding should also not be vaccinated. I'll just translate that into English. They are now saying if your child is between the ages of 5 to 11, if you're pregnant or if you're breastfeeding, then don't take the jab. What's changed? Why have they come to this conclusion now? Why are the so-called experts the last people to realise this? What happens in the next 18 months? Are they going to say, in light of a great many young athletes suddenly collapsing on the sports field, that it is no longer recommended for those in their 20s, 30s, 50s, 90s? We all know the answer to this. How come they don't? If you look to the mainstream media to honestly investigate the reasons why this is happening, you will be disappointed. They are simply pushing out the same dishonest fear porn and propaganda. I lost my life partner, my very best friend. What gets me out of bed every morning is my 2 young boys. Just imagine if I had followed their advice and injected my 8-year-old and it was him that died. It doesn't bear thinking about. Could I live with myself? Could you? How can they? They lied. People died.
All right, so Charlotte, I've been a catwalk model for 10 years. I'm very used to like sitting in the corner of a restaurant or someone kind of interviewing me and talking about my life. I've been very vocal about my life and kind of my situation from the YMCA to the billboards. How are you finding this moment right now?
Well, I keep saying I'm hot.
Yeah.
my cheeks are flushed, and I'm very sort of nervous, I suppose is the word. I mean, and especially as I don't know what's going to be asked. I'm quite a nervous person. Generally, I don't like to be in the limelight at all. I think if 2 years ago you'd have asked me, would you have stood in front of 1,000 people and done a speech, I would have said hell no.
And have you done that yet? 1,000 people?
I have, yeah, over.
Where?
Yeah.
Where was that?
Well, the first speech I did was in Birmingham.
Nice.
The second was in London in Trafalgar Square.
Wow.
And the third one is going to be tomorrow. So we're hoping.
What event was it at Trafalgar Square?
It was a worldwide Freedom Valley rally.
Wow. I was no doubt there, just somewhere in the crowds. I just wouldn't have known it was you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Probably, yeah.
So you must get it's like a lot of attention, and also being someone that's kind of representing this situation, right? In a sense, you're dealing with everyone's kind of like fragile ego in this moment because no one really knows what's going on, and so like to be so bold and to speak out, it's I found it's taken a kind of a toll on my health and my mental health. And just making sure that I'm still balanced and I'm still like young Indigo and I'm having fun and I'm not like losing myself to being angry all the time, right? Like how are you, like there's a lot of anger. We were speaking earlier, making sure that this isn't our personal anger. It's sacred anger and it's for the collective. It's not just okay. This woman's lost her husband and she's super angry, because I can see you've developed that to make it more holistic for everyone. Yeah. So tomorrow you're speaking.
Yeah.
How's that going to be? How are you feeling?
God. Do you know what? I've prepared a lot more than I have in the past. I've got a lot of people around me. Like I just don't know where I'd be without everyone. I've got about sort of 10 people coming to support me. My friend Trevor spent 4 hours helping me write the speech.
Big up Trevor. My dad's name. It is, yeah. Trevor.
Original bad man. Trevor.
Yeah.
And Caroline then kind of helped proofread it and then put it into sections, laminated it for me. Wayne is going to be there tomorrow, standing right next to me, holding the paper, holding the microphone, and they're going to be there for the aftermath as well. Like I've been to rallies before where I've been so overwhelmed, and then I've gone home and I've almost kind of like fallen apart, and it was unhealthy for me to be alone after them. So to have those people there that I can go out and I can just diffuse all of the energy
And these people, did you know them before 2020?
I did not.
Isn't it crazy?
It is.
I have like a whole gang of like, and I feel more close to them than I felt
Yes.
to friends I've known for decades.
Absolutely.
And it's truly a soul family, right?
It's the stuff, I literally call them my freedom family. Like
Yeah.
If I meet someone, then I'm more nervous about them meeting him than I am my family. I'm just like, they can tell, they can feel the energy, they're gonna know whether that's okay or not. And
it's important to really make sure you do keep that around you right now, because a lot of us are lone wolves and we're alone in a house with a family that completely don't resonate with our views. I'm seeing people being torn apart, and it's also important for me to say right now, it's not for us to impress our views on people. No. We're just sharing our truths. But we have to keep sharing our truths, because otherwise who's going to be that voice in your family? Who's going to be that change in your family? We have to just be that kind of like pillar. But fuck me, it's draining.
It is, and especially when I make mistakes, which I suppose everyone does. You know, I think that one of the most recent things for me was just kind of, I feel like my whole kind of campaigning for the last 18 months has been building up to trying to get onto mainstream media, and then it happened, but it happened really quickly. So they said on Monday we're coming tomorrow. You know, is that okay?
What?
So, yeah, they literally
these vipers, man.
And I was like, okay, you know,
catch you off guard, didn't it? Yeah.
Come on into my home, you know. So and where my mind was okay, I'm going to sort out my kids. I'm going to have to get my hair done. Like, I wasn't thinking, what are these people going to do? How can I protect myself from being manipulated?
And how pure are their intentions?
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah, I'm just thinking that, okay, so finally they're going to hear my story. And again, I suppose I was very naive. But I didn't really have a lot of time to kind of think about it.
Was you alone?
I was alone, and there were a lot of things that I would have done differently.
So just to put a pin in it for a second, we're talking about you've finally now, and it's happened, you've had the chance to speak with the mainstream media.
Yeah.
What platform was it?
It was BBC.
Okay,
Yeah.
big, like global.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't national, but it was on a national BBC iPlayer afterwards.
Wait, what do you mean it wasn't national? So it wasn't on TV?
So it was on TV, but it wasn't on the national TV. So what BBC do is they do like the 6 o'clock news, and then they go, now to news in your area.
So what was it, news for your area, was it?
Yeah.
Southeast?
Southeast.
England?
Of England, yeah.
Okay, I mean still, millions.
I mean, yeah, so it just wasn't the whole of England.
Okay, yeah, I get you.
No, they've actually removed it now, which is interesting.
They've removed it?
They've removed it, yeah.
What, off of iPlayer?
Off of iPlayer, yeah.
Was it just that specific news?
Yeah,
just
because there's one from like the 12th of August that's still on there.
It's almost like they knew they had to do it, but they wasn't going to allow it to stay for too long.
Yeah.
And it must have been like, the fact you was alone, it really blows me away, now a mother by herself, you're alone, trying to just understand everything that's happened to you, and then you've got like the camera crew there.
Yeah.
And it's like, one thing I've noticed is you have to be like, for instance, when we do this together, it's like working with the director to make sure the message comes across correctly. That's never going to happen with mainstream media.
No. And I tried. I actually said to them, I don't want this to be a debate about pro-vaccine or anti-vax. I don't want to. I said I've seen this happen before, where Vicky Spit had a interview with ITV, and they just sort of, they let her speak for 2 seconds, and then the rest of it was in defence of Astra Zeneca. So it was kind of like, it diminished everything that she said. So I said to them, I don't want this to be portrayed in this way. And it's almost like they did the exact opposite to what I asked.
But are you talking to like the directors in the room that come to your house?
The people, so I had the film crew and the interviewer.
See, the thing that most people don't realise is, though, they're just there doing their job, right? And as soon as they go back here, they're dropping the content to a whole different other team of people who don't give a fuck. And so it's like,
it doesn't matter what I would have said, and now I know that.
Yeah, it's just yeah. How are you feeling since that time, since the interview? Because that's the reason that we're here today. I remember seeing that, and I actually just thought it was just. I saw your intentions to just get this message out. I was like, fuck, this is going to be an opportunity to share with other people. You know, this even the system are now admitting it, which is, I think, the most important out of that 1 minute and 30 seconds. If people can just see that now, this is the thing, people are always going to try and pick it apart. The most important thing is Babylon have admitted we're going to have to offer this woman some money. What the fuck does that mean? If that doesn't open up people's eyes.
Yeah, and she did focus on money quite a bit. You know, she said she did say like they've given the 120,000 vaccine damage payment, but it could mean that that it should be at least 1.5 million, because they worked out like my husband's future earnings as a doctor, and then they kind of put it all on money, as well as kind of manipulating what they asked me and what they said. You know, the question they asked me whether I thought that should he, or had he have had all of or more information about adverse reactions, would he have still taken the jab? But I think that because the question caught me off guard, where I was in answer to that question, I was just trying to be truthful. I know how pro-vaccine he was. And so it would have taken a lot for him to have distrusted his whole entire profession. However, if it was up until the point that we are now, if he'd been offered it now and all of the information had been more accessible, more available, then
like what you're saying is like he's got common sense, but in that moment there was so much trust that we just had to have instantaneously with the government, that a man being grounded deeply in Western medicine,
exactly,
all of these things, he's obviously gone, I just have to trust, and then that way he can go back into the NHS and then help more people.
Yeah, and in my position was, you know, when he was having his stroke, he had a severe headache. What did he take to suppress that severe headache? He took paracetamol, you know, and it's that, you know, he didn't take the paracetamol thinking that he would have had a stroke from the paracetamol. You know, it's the same kind of thing. Like it's sort of he didn't have the knowledge. He didn't have the.
And also, most people just, whether you're an NHS doctor or no one's ever really questioned it. Obviously, there's a lot, unless you know someone that's had an adverse reaction in your life years ago, no one's ever, like, why would you question? Because it's almost like these government, they're like our parents. They care for us. Yeah. So, you know,
I think that it was just taken as though he would choose to die if he was given the choice again.
Well, it's very shallow, it's very short, and it's basically as if you've said, oh yeah, like he's just basically, he's a slave to the government, he'll just do whatever they say, which is, no, he's a king and very wise. It's just, wow.
You know, like he took paracetamol, but there are a lot of adverse reactions on that paracetamol leaflet in that packet, but he still took it, you know, so
like
that's where I was coming from. I still feel like he would have taken it had he known a few more adverse reactions. But, you know, it is such a leading question, because how would I have known the answer to that? How would anyone know except him? And we can't ask him. He's not here. So it was an unfair question. It was a leading question, and what they edited was, you know, the words came out of my mouth. I did say that I understand the situation is rare, but I went on to say that it's not as rare as everyone else believes it to be, and that's the bit that they cut.
Which is the most powerful part. Yeah.
And so that was my mistake. I shouldn't have said the first bit.
Because let's be honest, the truth is, not every single person, I literally know hundreds of people that have taken the vaccine that are alive right now. So don't get me wrong, there's a mass situation happening, but fundamentally it is a little bit rare to actually, in your situation, which is so tragic, fast, immediate and painful, that is pretty rare, let's be honest. So it's in the intention of the way they edit something.
It is, and I think that the reason that I was kicking myself so much and how I felt like I let people down is because, being a victim myself, the worst thing that I could have said was that I know it's rare, because every time one of us hears that word, it sets something off in us, and I don't like to hear it myself. I don't like that because it's all they do. It's the same as all the pro-vaccine people have got to say when they are trying to make their argument is, oh, well, I had COVID, and if I hadn't had the vaccine, then I'd be really ill in hospital. That's kind of like, that's the only thing that they can say. So it's the only thing that the government can say is that it's rare. So for me to kind of say the same thing, I'm aware that it was a bit of a kick in the teeth for people, and it would have been, had I been someone else watching it, it would have been for me as well. And I do regret that. However, I'm not media trained. I'm just a person.
Exactly.
I just had.
You can't be sorry for it at all.
No, I just had someone come to my house and ask me questions with a camera
Who are
in my
trained
face.
vipers.
Yeah.
These are in my opinion, these are the agents of the BBC who know exactly what they need. You know, these people went to university to get the thing. And you're basically someone who's emotional and trying to just fucking change the world.
Yeah.
So.
And I kind of I did it because I thought, well, as long as I'm honest, then they can't do me nothing. But I was wrong.
Yeah. But turning poison to medicine, there's so much that we can take from this opportunity though, which is now at least over southeast England. A lot of people know that there is some kind of shift happening.
And they've heard it. Yeah.
And they've heard it. Yeah. And that's the most important thing I think about your mission, is just giving people hope that actually, do you know what? You don't have to be small or silent against this massive, tyrannical, incredible organization which makes you feel like you're just nothing. Actually, no, do you know what? If you could, only 95 people. We've seen more people walk past the street right now. And they've gathered together and created such a strong nucleus of change. So on behalf of no doubt so many people watching this, thank you for never giving in and not resisting and turning your poison into medicine. And I'm going to be there tomorrow floating in the crowd watching you. And the last thing I'm going to say is because there's so much mistrust out there. And you said you feel, I don't know what the word you said, sorry that you'd let people down, right? But listen, people just need to listen to their heart. And because there's 1,000 different ways that this moment could go forward. And I'm telling you, as someone who's sitting in front of you, I trust your energy. I trust your intentions. And also, I know that me and you, and even your husband, we didn't incarnate to lose. There's no way that I incarnated into this lifetime to lose or to bow down to that Babylonian system who have manipulated this entire pandemic. 100% there's a virus, I'm not here for that. But the agenda and the way it's being held, the way it's being organised behind the scenes has been very wrong, especially for ordinary people on the breadline. And we're about to see in these coming days, especially with the Queen, how many people are going to suffer on the day of the funeral, regardless of being if you like the royals. I'm not here for that conversation. Just how many people. I know someone that's been waiting a few months for an operation on that day, and now they're just going to have to wait. I know people that have got they've booked trips to Butlins, and now on that day though they just got to stay in their hotel because nothing's open on that. It's like people don't realize how unfair it is. So I love you and thank you for all you're doing for the world and for my future.
I really appreciate you and thank you for your time.
Thank you.